Welcome to Swaggerized Performance Lab, the art and nuance of sport. I'm Mr. Smith, your host. Today we get right to it. Just talking about what happens when you don't make it, or moreover, sometimes sports sells you the stopwatch, the finish, the medal, but in reality, it could be a lottery ticket. And I'm going to use football for this example. Some of you may know these athletes that I'm going to speak about, but if you just look at football in general, if you look at the reverse funnel, what you'll see is you'll see about 2-3 million youth football players. Of those, you have high school football, and this doesn't even include the kids that want to play, right? It doesn't include the kids that play, just for fun. All the kids that want to play. This is the people that were actually able to even put a uniform on for Pop Warner and youth football, which there's tryouts for that. So when we look at sports, it can be extremely tough. It sells you the money, the glitz, the glamour, and that is there. But there's also the flip side of it, and not giving up, but how to navigate it, how to keep going, how to stay faithful, how to keep believing, how to work through this is the key. So when you look at the 2 to 3 million youth football players, from that you have 1 million high school athletes. And then you move to all NCAA divisions, 83,000. But if you're just looking at NCAA, it's only 35,000. From those 35,000 NCAA athletes, football, you have about 5,700 Division I starters, right? And then if you go through the top 100 or the top 50, you have about the top 50 teams or the top 100, you have about 1,000 athletes from that. So 22 players times 50 teams that are, your bowl eligible teams, that's about 1,000 athletes. Out of those 1,000 athletes that are starters, you have 320 NFL Combine invites. Of the NFL Combine invites, 250 or 80% of those become an NFL draft pick. So when you look at the metrics all the way through, you have less than 1%. It's 1% of 1%. And then if you even include the CFL, the Canadian Football League, which now pays pretty well on the lower tier of NFL, for American players, there's only a certain amount of athletes you can have on the team. So on a team of approximately 40 to 50 professional players, you can only have about 30% of those can be your US born players. So there's only a small fraction that could be on a CFL team. So that it can't be comprised of all American players. So that becomes even more difficult. You would think it'd be easier, but then it's difficult because they have a less percentage. All of their starters cannot be American-born players. So when you take a look at this, you're like, wow, what's happening? What is going on? Football sells you a stopwatch, but hands you a lottery ticket. It seems like meritocracy, but let's dive a little bit deeper. So then if you tap in further and you say, okay, let's take a deeper look at actually what happens when you perform. So what happens when you perform? So if we take a look at Charlie Ward, Major Harris, Dylan Gabriel. So if you remember Charlie Ward was an incredible quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, He played for Florida State, took them to a national championship. He was so smooth. And if you watched him play for the 2 years, people wouldn't remember him because he didn't play in the NFL, but he's arguably one of the best collegiate quarterbacks ever in history. Charlie Ward was so smooth. He made the game look easy. I mean, he could throw it, he could run, he could read defense. He was smart. He was a leader. He was everything that you would want. But there were some things that went against him. One, that he could play basketball. So Charlie, when he was asked if he would play football, he absolutely would, but he wanted to be chosen based on his value. And when he said that, the NFL just didn't draft him at all. Does that sound like something that happened before? Sound like something that maybe even Shedeur Sanders went through, but Shedeur Sanders was actually drafted. Charlie Ward was a Heisman Trophy winner, he was one of the best college quarterbacks you could ever see. Consummate professional, an elite athlete. So he doesn't play in the NFL. NFL doesn't draft him, and the NBA says, okay, we'll take him. And then he plays for the New York Knicks. He plays for those great Pat Riley teams. He becomes a consummate leader, but he has the athletic ability, the IQ, and the basketball ability to play in the NFL, play in the NBA as only a 6'2", 6'1" point guard. So you know he had to be a phenomenal athlete. Anyone that plays football, if you're a defensive back like I was, that's one of the measuring sticks. If you can't play hoop, you okay. You're athletic, you're okay. You can fit in a system, but you're not really one of those dudes that can do it everything, anywhere, in any system. Most of the defensive backs and wide receivers that can play ball, hoop too, really hoop, man, those dudes can fit in any system. They're for real. And Charlie obviously had that kind of athleticism that he played in the NBA. Not that he was an elite NBA athlete, but he was a good enough athlete to play in the NBA, which says a lot, because everyone in the NBA is, even the people they call not athletes in the NBA are athletic. They're elite athletes. So Charlie Ward goes undrafted. And the knock on him was that they could say he needed a little bit more weight. Could he handle contact? And the fact that they didn't like the leverage he had. Right? There were some arguments that they didn't really like that leverage that he had, the ability to be able to play two sports. Charlie would have been incredible for the NFL at that time. The next athlete is Major Harris, which is different. People forget about Major Harris. High upside, dual threat, West Virginia, kind of your Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson. His stock, Major Harris was punished by draft evaluations for playing in a sort of an option scheme, but he was absolutely incredible. Could throw it, could run. He was basically everything you see in maybe a Lamar Jackson. He was Michael Vick before there was Michael Vick. He was Vince Young before there was Vince Young. He was Baker's Mayfield before Baker's Mayfield. So, I mean, Major Harris was an incredible athlete. The knock on him was moreover, at that time, there was still the stigma of drafting black quarterbacks. His accuracy for the time and option rate was a little bit lower, but the eyeball test when you see Major Harris play and what he did for those West Virginia teams was absolutely incredible. Major Harris was basically undrafted. Right? He was late rounder, ended up playing in the CFL, and you look at that and you say, all that effort you put in, all that sacrifice, laying your body on the line, and you don't see an NFL field. And so I would say the greatest story of this all is the Major Harris story, because he's the person that really had to pivot and make something from basically nothing. He didn't get the reciprocity that he should have gotten for the effort that he put in the sport, and that's sports. And when again, oftentimes, it sells you meritocracy, but in reality, it's a lottery ticket. So you choosing the right sports, choosing the right system, choosing the right coach, choosing the right university, choosing the right training environment, choosing the right academy, choosing to go to high school, choosing homeschool, not even for the reasons of actually athletic, but for the reasons of your overall holistic, intellectual, spiritual, mind, body development, your full development. This is what this is about, because oftentimes sports sells you meritocracy, but in reality, it's a lottery. And that is not even more true. That is so true in football, where football, it's interchangeable because of the systems. Now, in positions like defensive back and corner, you have to be elite. But even based on the defensive coordinator and these different individuals, they'll try to make it work for who they want to make it work for. Meaning, they'll put more stress on the corners to free up a safety that can't do anything in coverage. Right? So the defensive coordinator, if he likes that person, they'll never put that safety, they'll never put them at risk ever, and they'll put more stress on the corners. If they're not in man-to-man every snap, they're covering a lot of zone. They're covering their third and other responsibilities. Right? They're looking for certain routes coming into their third. If certain routes come into their third and then leave, sometimes they have to cover those, these kind of third option coverages where the corners are asked to do more than what you would think to free up other individuals. They would say to free up, but sometimes it's to hide individuals. It's to hide individuals that people that they like a lot, that they wanted to draft, and they hide them flat out. So, I can, the corners we played with, my corner, opposite side me corner was Donald Toomer, great corner, 6'2", long, athletic. I was on the opposite side. We manned up on everybody. We didn't show no fake. It was like we manned up on everybody. Everybody. Didn't matter. To free up a lot of the other positions, and that's okay. That's okay. Defensive back is corner is one of the one positions is very difficult to hide. You do have some schemes that are more zone based, but given you still have to face the receivers that are going to challenge you. They're going to come through that zone, and you're going to have to get on your feet. You have to have quick feet no matter what. You have quick feet, and you have to have hips. So my point is that coaches oftentimes will run schemes to hide players, and you would think a player is qualified to be drafted. You wonder what's happening, and it's meritocracy based, and that's what they're selling. But in reality, football is more like a lottery ticket. It's a lottery ticket. Say you look at Dylan Gabriel, right? Dylan Gabriel plays at Central Florida for 3 years, then plays at Oklahoma, then plays at Oregon. He gets virtually 6 years. 6 years. And he was someone that oftentimes they hurt you because you're wiser in years, you spent more time in college. Typically that hurts you. Well, he's already reached his ceiling. But in Dylan Gabriel's situation, it helped him, right? It helped him. They gave, he had over 2,000 college dropbacks. He's considered plug and play. He has great pre-snap processing, right? So he's given all of these things that they use to help him instead of hurt him, when oftentimes they'll flip it around and use that to hurt players with. And then additionally, he was on the shorter, which that's not the limit. There's always been great quarterbacks that were shorter. Russell Wilson, Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie was an amazing quarterback that likely should have got the deal in the NFL early on instead of having to do what he did in the CFL, which he was amazing at Calgary and other places. I played with Doug, but Doug was an amazing athlete, played basketball, amazing athlete, a competitor. You could sleep on him, but not for long. He was just a competitor. Everything you would want right out of Boston College. I mean, the amazing, everyone's amazing for his amazing bowl game pass, game-ending win. So I don't want to knock Dylan Gabriel for his height, but he was on the shorter end and it didn't really hurt him. He was drafted in the 3rd round, and this is to my point. Stefanski, who's considered an offensive mind, drafted him, and he was willing to do anything to make it work, even to the point where you could see that there was some issues, because even Joe Flacco struggled under that offensive scheme, right? So Joe Flacco struggled under that offensive scheme. And, he was there for a while. So when you look at Joe Flacco at Cleveland, he plays 4 games and he goes 1 for 3 in those first 4 games. So I'm going to pull up Joe Flacco right here, his numbers. And here's Joe Flacco. So you have Joe Flacco here, Cleveland. He plays 4 games at Cleveland. He goes 1 for 3, 58%, 800 yards. He has 2 TDs and 6 interceptions. Shador was actually more functional than Joe Flacco, a quarterback with elite level experience, a Super Bowl winner, someone that will likely get in the Hall of Fame at some point. But it cost so much, they trade Joe Flacco and they play Dylan Gabriel. So Dylan Gabriel, when you look at him and you say, okay, Stefanski never put him in a situation that would be at risk, right? It was like he wanted to give him the stats that would show that he was functional. He never put him at risk, never asked him to do much, even willing to lose games in doing so. And this is what I say about football. Coaches do this, and you talk to anyone and coaches will do this. You talk to any elite athlete and they'll tell you at times a coach was willing to lose ball games in order to prove a point. And they were wrong in doing it, which fractures team because a team can see it. Think about what a person like Myles Garrett is thinking. Think about what Denzel Ward is thinking. Think about, their new running backs and tight ends. Think about what they're thinking, right? What it causes, it causes distrust in the team. And even though you have this military mindset, if your general is undermining you and purposely putting you in harm's way, you start to lose trust. Even the best of teams start to lose trust. So it's never a good thing when coaches do that. And they ultimately lose credibility, which Stefanski was ultimately, let go because of this. So, but the comparison is you see Dillon Gabriel, which had clearly other issues against him, was still drafted in the 3rd round. Charlie Ward wasn't drafted in the 90s after being a Heisman Trophy national championship winner, one of the best college quarterbacks ever. I'm talking about play. Had one. Charlie Ward, one of the best to do it at Florida State, one of the best to do it in NCAA football in the last 40 years. Hands down. And Major Harris, a person that, if you look at his projected now, these guys were likely projected in the 1st round. It says Charlie's 2nd round, but Dillon Gabriel he's still drafted. And that's where football and sports, oftentimes it says meritocracy, but then oftentimes it's like a lottery ticket. So when you have athletes that are sacrificing everything, and parents and families and committing everything and money and finance, and then at the end of the day, football is one of those sports where there's no you continue to play. It's not a lifestyle sport. It just kind of ends and it stops. So what are you supposed to do? Right? So that what happens when you don't make it makes the folks like Major Harris, Charlie Ward, makes them much more, when you really look at who they had to be to pivot. That's not, no pun intended to the Pivot podcast at all, but that is really pivoting, is when you don't make it, when you should, because it's sold that everybody that should make it makes it. And that's not true. Everybody that should makes it, God has a plan, and Most High has a plan for all of us. And the plan that he has, we often place the glamorous plan above other plans, not realizing that all of these plans have equal and abundant purpose. And the thing about it is football too, it doesn't, and I'm not picking on football, I'm just giving you a perspective. You don't really have a hat to hang yourself on, because it's not like if you run the 100-meter in track or field, you're like, oh, I ran the 10-1. I didn't go in, or I made it to the Olympic trials, right? Like you know how legit. It's not for the money. It's like that time is legit. You can do your combine times and all that kind of stuff, but it's all, once you finish it, it's like it matters, but not as much as it should. Not as much as it should. And I'll tell you one thing, in that when guys don't make it, like a guy like Major Harris, there's scouts, and when guys don't, make it from college to prep, there's their coaches, and there's people that don't want them. They want them to fail because they don't want to be proven wrong. So that's that's the nasty part. I mean, I'm getting very, very real with you. There's some coaches I talk to, the best coaches in the business, still talk to this day. But there's other coaches that had a lot of influence in my career that I've never talked to, that I won't talk to. And I should, I should have had a conversation. I was a guy that graduated early, started 4 years, despite at certain times, you try to undermine. So I can relate to the Major Harris. I can relate to the Charlie Ward, even though you may play a year, you may play 2 years, you may play 3 years, right? But you understand how this opportunity and how the meritocracy works. It's not all meritocracy. It's a lottery ticket. It's not even like a clear selection. Sometimes in these situations, it's academies, it's personalities, it's isms. It is. A lot of coaches that would feel comfortable at X college wouldn't feel comfortable coaching at all with all these black athletes at University of Florida or Florida State or Alabama or Georgia or one of them SEC schools. They can take some athletes, and have them on their roster and control them, but to have it a large portion of elite, excellent, I mean classroom, athletic, playing, to have them on there to deal with them, all of them, no, they couldn't handle that. So it takes special coaches to coach at these SEC schools, which ultimately get these guys to the next level. Now, no situation is without problems. And what I'm saying is it's not clear like track and field. It's not even clear like baseball where you put the bat on the ball. Football is very ambiguous, and sports has many layers of that. And so how you navigate this, how you navigate systems that sell meritocracy, but then oftentimes it's a lottery ticket, because we all want to say sports is all meritocracy. That's why a lot of black athletes have always been involved and always achieved. But as business has grown, it's always been a business. It's always been ambiguous. How do you navigate that? You navigate that by being excellent. You navigate that by doing all the things you can control, doing that the right way, meaning going to class, not shooting, not hitting your own self with the hammer over your head, not allowing them to hit you with the hammer over the head, as my dad would say. Classroom, practice, weight room, all excellent, improving, consistently showing up, studying, taking coaching. And yes, sometimes coaching has you out of position. And I mean, when I say that, out of position, out of alignment, you may be a wide receiver, a tall and big wide receiver, but they want you to come in and play tight end, but you don't really scale there because you would be considered an undersized tight end, and maybe only 5 NFL teams would even look at a tight end like that. Right? That you're so, you're undersized, you're in that tweener zone. Right? So you're trying to navigate situations where what benefits the organization, but then also at the same time, it could undermine your potential future. So how do you navigate that? Well, now you have NIL and you have the portal. And a lot of this has come about because of the history of football, the history of these types of situations where the reciprocity wasn't there like it is now. That's the difference. You have NIL. So now it's up to you to maximize the opportunity, to do what you can control, to understand the silent contract, which I talked about in my other video. That's an important video. Understand the silent contract. Knowing that when you're in a system, there are different behavioral norms that you will have to align with in order to succeed in that environment. See, this isn't about saying, oh, football is bad, because I believe football changes lives from a financial standpoint, from giving young men that wouldn't have an opportunity to go to college, to see the world, to do anything like that, giving them the opportunity to experience that. to change their lives and get a degree, meaning get some intellectual credibility that you can use in this life to advance your life and your family's life. For that alone, it provides an avenue. And how you navigate that is key, because it's very hard to control these organizations and systems. And you can look at these two players, Charlie Ward and Major Harris, right there, and you can see clearly some guys didn't make it for a variety of reasons. Charlie was able to pivot to the NBA. Major was able to pivot to CFL at the time, but he missed out on some big time money as a quarterback, life-changing money. When you take a look at this situation, let's look at Jackson Dart and Lamar Jackson, which is PDF I put together here. So you have Lamar almost failed. Jackson is picked in the first round. Lamar's a high generational, youngest Heisman Trophy winner ever. They're approximately the same height. Jackson was considered, his arm length was considered short. That didn't hurt him, even though it was below the NFL average. His 40 time was 4.69. Lamar Jackson didn't even run because he was considered too athletic. Bill Polian, Hall of Fame executive, says Lamar should switch to wide receiver and he wouldn't draft him as QB. He's not a QB. I mean, incredible. I mean, this is, and I'm not attacking anyone, but I'm saying, Bill, Mr. Polian, this is like impacting a person's life when you say these things, and he had to know he was swaying minds. People don't get a second shot. Athletes don't get a second shot at this. The coaches, they screw up in college. They mess up a year. They explain it away. Oh, we didn't have a roster, right? We're in a rebuilding year. Some coaches were horribly dysfunctional earlier in their career, and they're able to become great coaches. The athlete only gets 4 years at it. I mean, if you start off 4 years, most athletes are only starting 1 year, 2 or a half, 1 year or part of the 1 year. It's not a lot of 4, 3, 2, 4 year, 3 year starters in the top 40 teams, bowl teams. It's not a lot of those guys. So you only getting 2 years to change your life. And then you have a coach that's undermining your opportunity to go to the next level. That's the key. They still get the advance. You only get one shot at this. The coach gets multiple shots. And a lot of coaches have undermined a bunch of athletes' careers, and I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just saying this is what it is. That's why I'm not saying any names. I'm just saying this is, when it really gets down to it, go talk to a Dion personally. Go talk to, some of these coaches personally. Players, go talk to the players personally, and they'll tell you. I mean, they'll have some horrendous stories. So you have Giants traded up to round 1 to take Jackson Dart, 25th overall, and then Lamar Jackson falls to 32. Lamar Jackson, 2 times NFL MVP, should be 3-time. Jackson Dart, through, Brian Daboll, again, a coach that was going to do everything for him to have a great year, his rookie season. That's what you're looking at, is coaches are willing to do everything. They're willing to change the scheme versus someone else, let's say like Shedeur Sanders. Nah, I'm going to make him fit. I know this doesn't really fit well, but I'm going to do it anyway. He's got to do it. He's got to make it work. You look at Jalen Hurts, all these different offensive coordinators, right? You would think like, okay, let's look at his best years, look at he does well, and let's let the offensive coordinator not change his entirely, but let's say, okay, can we tailor this to Jalen, what works, what we think we need to do to make it better, to open up the offense? but just no continuity. Jalen Hurts is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best. And you know why I say that? Because he's had no continuity, and he's a Super Bowl champion, and he's had some excellent seasons, and that's very hard to do. Very hard to do, but they'll never tell you that. They'll never tell you that. They'll never. These other guys are great. Yeah, they're great. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look who he's had. He's had probably the best coach in the business, Andy Reid. Consistency. Do you know what consistency, same practice, same situation, same methodology, shoot, just for a year and a half or 2 years, you know what that'll do. And if you're a disciplined dude, just for a year, same thing, no interruptions. I get to go in and film. I'm getting better. Every day I walk in, I'm getting better. It's getting in my DNA, in my memory every day. Continuity is what's giving you, is what's gonna really allow you to improve. Being in the same system, not having the rug pulled from under you. Jalen Hurts is doing what he's doing with the rug pulled from underneath him, with individuals trying to criticize him. And this guy is one of the best dudes for the NFL in the last 40 years. So Mr. Smith with Swagger Eyes Performance Lab, the Art and Nuance of Sport. Is sport meritocracy, or is it more like a lottery ticket? It doesn't matter either way, because we have to navigate it. We have to control what we control. Classrooms, study to show ourselves approved. Mind, body, soul, emotional improvement and excellence. Understanding that there is a silent contract, meaning we can't force organizations, force systems to change when it's their system. You can't take your emotions, even though it hits home to heart. You have to understand, okay, how can I have an impact without impacting in the room? That could be privately. That could be connecting with high-level individuals. That could be not even investing your money, but your visibility, your support, learning, sitting down with people like you, same mindset, same background, same high-level competence in multiple sport, in multiple different domains, not just sport. This is the art and nuance of sport. And you've just got the key, sport being meritocracy, or oftentimes a lottery ticket. But no matter what, we got to overcome it. And you will overcome it. And that's why you're here at this video. If you're here at this video, you're going to make it. Not because I'm here, but you're going to make it. You have what it takes to focus, the awareness. I'll see you next time. I'm Mr. Smith, and I'm out.